an interview with Mr. Morris about his school days in Burwash. Recorded in May 1993. What you're saying. So you were at this school when you were a little boy?
Yes. And my father before it.
And your father before you?
Yes.
Goodness.
Yes, we've lived in Burwash, the Morrises have since the 1700s.
Really? Goodness.
Yes. So his great-grandfather was policeman here.
Was he?
Yes. And my granddad was a farmer.
Was he?
My father came to this school, so that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And when he was at this school, there was no water here, only as they caught it from the rain. And the boys used to have to take pails and go each morning down to in front of, well, near enough the Admiral. There used to be a shop just this side of it in those days. We won't go back for a lot of names that I remember, but it was the stores last before it closed. And straight in front there was a big bank where you come out and go down to Etchingham Way, and down over in there was a spring, and it had the top built over it like that. And they used to have to go from this school down there with 2 buckets, each 2 boys did, and fetch the schoolmaster's water for drinking, because there was no water down there in those days. But when I came to school, it had been put on. But I lived that way, at the top of, as most of you know, Scrub Lane. I lived there, and we used to have to go across to the spring. My dad did every day, and get the water and have from there. And it wasn't until I was about 7 years old that we had the water from the main laid onto our head. So it hadn't been through this way many years.
Goodness.
And
what about when you first, what was it like when you were at school, when you came
well,
to
when
school?
I first came to school, we all used to have to be 5 years old before we started. And when I started, I lived at, well, what they called the square. I used to come up and down the hill, and at the top of the hill, instead of the memorial being there, there was a tree growing there in those days with an iron railing round it. And I started school, I don't know, it's been altered now. I started in the far end, and that's where I started school, and there was 2 classes in there. One end, 5 to 6, had their forms, and the other end, 6 to 7. And their school teachers lived just in the first house along your entrance here. Their name was Miss Note and Miss Blake. And Miss Blake used to take infant class. And when we started in there, we used to have square trays like that with a little sand in. And that's where we used to have to start to write with our fingers. Very similar to that one, only they were square. And then we used to have to write the letters on there, and that's how we first started to learn to write, in the sand.
And started all over again.
Yeah. And that's how we used to do it, in the sand trays. And that at first, and do numbers and various things. And then as you got a bit older, you used to be allowed to have a slate. And when you had the slate, they were similar to them, but they didn't have any wood round them. They were just a plain slate we used to have. And we used to do the writing on that, and drawing and sums and everything else. And then after that we used to move up into Miss Notes' class, which was the other end of the room. And we used to carry on from there. And when we got there, we used to have little blackboards. And we used to have to copy everything off the blackboards and do letters and everything else till we finally got at that we could do them nicely. And then we started reading. And that was rather a slow job. But we used to have to read every day, and you never knew who was going to read next, because teacher would dot her back and she'd say, right, now you carry on with the next line. And you used to have to carry on and read up till she said, right, and then she'd say, come on, what about you? Now you carry on. And we used to have to do it like that in those days.
So you'd all be reading the same book at the same time?
Yes, that's right, yes, we all had the same book at the same time, and you had to follow it.
Yeah.
See? So as to not lose your place, or else you was in trouble.
Yeah.
And that. And then, after that, when we finished in that class, I think it's your kitchen now, there used to be a classroom there. And we moved up into Mrs. Longled's class, and carried on in there and gradually learnt more and more until you finally got up and right through the school. And this room, it's altogether different now, you see. It used to be one big room right through with a big partition through the middle. And every morning the partition was open back, one half of it was, and Mr. Self, who was the headmaster, we used to push his organ into the middle, and that's where we used to have to sing a hymn every morning, and that, when we came to school. Before we'd done anything else, we all used to get in there except the infants, and then we all used to sing in there. Then when that was finished, we used to go from classes. This half, there used to be 2 classes in. The next half, there would be 2 more classes. And the far room, there used to be 1 class in there, because there was between 250 and 300 children went to school here in those days, and that. And they all used to have to walk here. There was no cars, there was no other way. And they used to come from right along Fontbridge Lane, and all through there, some down through the fields, and right up to Terses, which is over the railway line, the other side of the village, then Shrub Lane, the other side there. And some of them used to come from nearly Burwash Field, and right out to the Donkey Pub, Mistral and Miss Farm, some used to come from, right out that way. And they all used to have to walk, wet or fine.
It would have been a long walk, wouldn't it?
It was a very long walk for some of them. But the teachers used to be fairly good. If it was a bad day and they was a little bit late getting here, they didn't used to grumble at them because they had such a long journey. And Miss Note and Miss Blake, they was very good teachers. If any of the children got soaking wet, they used to take them into their house next door and give them a glass of warm milk and dry their clothes for them, and that. And when the afternoon came in the winter time, when it was getting quite dark, the children that went far, far away was told they could start home so as to get home before it got dark.
So the children used to walk all that way on their own? I mean,
Yes.
Nowadays, but a lot of you come by car, and your parents, your mum and dad collect you, but in your day, children used to come on their own, did they mainly?
Yeah. Oh yes. I was lucky. When I was very young, I lived at the top of Shrub Road, as it's known now. And but in 19 16, the end of 1916, we moved to Burwash Place, which is down Spring Lane Hill. And that used to be just over a mile to go to school then.
Yeah. How
But-
long did it take you to get to walk to school, do you know? Because it depends what you did on the way.
Yes. And that. But I was lucky. I had a granny lived up the village. And I used to leave my dinner there so I could go there and get my sandwiches and have dinner. And that. But the others used to have to sit in school and bring their drink and all and have their meals in school. Or if it was a nice fine day, you'd be allowed to eat in the playground and you could sit under the trees out in the far playground and have your dinner right there. But of course the playgrounds here in those days were nothing like they are today. They used to be just plain mud and dirt. So when it was wet, of course the kiddies coming into school after they were allowed out to go to the toilets, but wasn't allowed to stop to play, the mats and all was very dirty. Yes, we used to have to go outside. There was no cover over. The girls used to run up the side and round to the far corner, and the boys used to have to go a little bit further and round the other end. That's right.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And down there, instead of that being a grass and a field where you play, that used to be gardens down there. And when you got up in to about the age of 12, then you went in the gardening class. And you all used to have a piece of garden down there. There was 28 plots down there. And that's where we used to go out and have our gardening lessons and grow vegetables and flowers and all sorts of things along there. And for 3 years running, this school won the Spade for the best lot of gardens in East Sussex.
Did it?
And that used to hang in a case in the far room where the schoolmaster was. Yes.
Oh, right. So you
And
stayed,
what
it was
happened
all
was
your
when I
schooling
got
was here.
14, I was rather naughty. I got rather fed up with school. So I came in the morning, the day I was 14, and in the afternoon, instead of coming back in at 1:15 to go to school, I took my pencils and my little bag, what we used to keep our books in underneath the desk. I done that up and I took it home and I went home and I says, that's finished school. I'm not going to school anymore now, I'm going to work tomorrow. And that. But anyway, Mother says, you're not, you're going to school. When Father came home, he had a lot more to say, and I had to take my bag and pencils and go back to school the next morning. And I had to carry right up to the Christmas. And that, so I went to Christmas and then I finished. And I very soon got my job, a job, working, and that was on the farm. And I worked right from when I was 14 years old up to my birthday when I was 18. And I've never been without a job, so there was always plenty to do in those days.
Oh, hard work.
Yes.
No,
I
I,
think you told them about how you used to mix the ink up when you were in
Oh,
the
no.
classes,
Oh.
yeah.
No, of course. When we came to school, it was in the older classes, we didn't used to have fountain pens or pens like you have today. We used to have pens with nibs on. And had to pour ink into ink wells on the desk. And every Monday morning, one of the boys used to have a big gallon bottle and put some powder in it and some water and stir it up and make the ink. And then he'd go all round the class pouring a little in each ink well for to last you all the week for writing. Yeah. That's how we used to do that. And the teachers, they sometimes used to have the children, some of the best ones in each class, and they used to have to count the books up. How many spare writing books and arithmetic books and all, and that they used to have to count them, how many there was left in the cupboard, and then go and tell the headmaster, and he used to sit there at his desk. He used to take his glass, but he used to sit at his desk, and he used to rotate how many new books we wanted, and all the rest of it, and he used to do all that sort of work, but that didn't make any difference. He'd always got his eye on you. You couldn't play him up.
No, I know
They
some.
all sat facing the teacher, didn't you?
Yes, yes,
Sit on the bottom of the
we
table,
we never used to have tables like this. We used to have these long desks, and they usually used to sit 5 and 6s in them, and you always sat and faced the teacher. So if your teacher was at this end with her blackboard and easel and was teaching from this end, you would all face up this way. And there was rows of desks and just room to get down through the middle of them and round the 8 sides. It was quite different then.
Didn't have room to sit on the carpet like this, did you?
Oh, no, we never had anything to do like this.
Full of desks.
Yes. It sounds like there was about 100 more children than there are now, but not.
Yes.
You didn't have the outside
Oh, no, we didn't have the
house,
outside
so you'd had more
places.
children in
It
less
needed
space.
Yes.
That's right,
Yes, when we had 1 year, we had just over 300,
Mm,
and then we
goodness.
was getting a bit full.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, some of the children have thought of questions that they'd like to ask you
Oh, yes, yes.
about when you were at school. Lizzie, do you remember what you wanted to ask?
What sort of clothes? Well,
Did you have a school
when we,
uniform? Or?
no school uniforms. We all used to be dressed different. And we used to have hobnail boots. Thick boots with nails in the bottom and pelts on them. And we used to have short stockings and little shorts. They might be even made out of somebody else's old coat because their mothers used to make the children trousers. These little shorts in them days, and they weren't always nice bought new ones. And then we used to have jerseys. We didn't used to have jackets, and we used to have jerseys on over the top. And we had one boy, his name was Sidney Ascot, and he was a naughty little boy. Whenever he had a jersey on, which he nearly always had to wear, he used to sit in class, and if teacher was reading anything to us, he used to sit there and keep on like that with his thumb and finger. And he used to pick it, and it used to unwind and unwind all the way up his sleeve. Yeah. And the girls, they used to wear dresses of all colours and that. And they used to have button-up boots. Come up to leg, they were thicker, but they didn't used to have the hobnails in the bottom of their boots. They used to have these button-up ones. And we used to have a button hook, and you used to put it through the hole in the leather and then pull the button through to do it up because you couldn't do them very well with your fingers. Anything else you want to know about your clothes? That's all right. How would you like to wear it like that these days?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nicholas, you had a question about when he started school. How many years ago?
Oh dear. When did I start school? I know it was the age of 5 and I was born in 1909.
So what's 9 add 5? 5 years on from 9. What's 9 and add 5? Yes. Is that right? 1914.
Yeah, 1914. Year the war started.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right, Claire Bennett, you had a question, didn't you? You want to know about the toy? Did he have toys to play?
Well, in school, goodness, no. All we had one term was in the very infants. We used to have some beads, what we used to have to learn to game with. That was the only toys we had at school. And there was no play school before we went.
You had toys at home.
Yes, we had a few toys at home, but we never had many because people didn't used to get much money in those days. And the money was quite different to what it is now. We had 240 pence to the pound in those days, and 4 farthings to a penny. We used to have little silver threepenny pieces, and that the money was quite different.
One penny, but my brother dug up just a week or two ago. That's 1917. That's an old sort of penny, so you might want to have a look at that.
So
one
that was minted at the time
Time
when
that
you
you
would
were
have
at
been at
school.
school here, isn't
Yes.
it? 1917.
Yes.
Lou, did you have a question about the dinners?
Well, it wasn't a canteen here, was there?
Oh no, you always used to have to bring your sandwiches and that, and a bottle of drink if you wanted some. If not, you could go and help yourself to drink of water.
What sort of thing would children have had for their dinner? They wouldn't have had crisps, would they?
Oh no,
No.
nothing like that. They was all sandwiches.
Mm.
Bread and butter, or rather, we called it butter, but the lot had margarine in those days. And they used to bring cheese and jam.
Mm.
Some of them used to have honey. And then again, one or two their mothers would make them a little piece of pastry and put a little something in it. And they had little pots.
Would you
Things like that in those days.
would you have had a drink? Would you have had a drink?
Well, yes, if you wanted a drink, you had to bring it to school with
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And there was no flask, so you used to carry it in a bottle, and the bottle you used to take was usually about the size of a medicine bottle.
Mm.
Yeah. No. No, things were altogether different in those days. Yeah. What would you like to know? Have a
Library.
library? No, there was no libraries. We didn't have one at school, and there wasn't any in the village, not in those days. And everybody in the school each had their book underneath their desk, and you used to make a bag, and it used to be about so long and about so wide, and then you used to put these books in your bag and put them under the desk and tie them round with a piece of tape, and they used to sit underneath, and that used to be your place. And that. No swimming pool, good Lord, no. We used to have a reindeer spring there where your swimming pool, we escaped that way. And then when we used to go out Wednesday for long play, we used to play reindeers. And that was a game where you stood and hit a ball, and so the other children stood out round to try and catch it. And if they caught it, you were out. If they didn't catch it all the time until they threw it back, you run round the ring, and each one time you went round and scored. What was the headmaster like?
What's it called?
Oh, Mr. South.
We've got Christine now.
Yes, that must be one of your relations.
Yes, it
Christine,
was, I
isn't it?
think.
Oh.
He lived in the house where you had your library now. That was the headmaster who lived there.
Yes.
Right at the
I think, what would he be, a granddad or a great-granddad?
Great-granddad.
Great-granddad, yes. Yes, he used to teach me at school. And he gave me the cane once or twice.
What did you get the cane for?
Oh, I used to get into a little bit of trouble at times. Yeah,
Are you going to tell us?
well,
Andrew knows.
I was very naughty one day when we was supposed to sit down and write about the village. And instead of writing about it, we'd done it such a lot of times with Mrs. Longley, I got fed up with it. So I put in my book, Bother the Village. And that was all I wrote. And after the lesson, I was in that where the kitchen is now, and the kitchen's made bigger, it was a smaller room now. And I was put in between the two doors. There used to be two glass doors came through into this room. And I was put in there, and then when the others went to play, I had to go into Mr. South for it. And so he says, I'm ashamed of you, Morris. Hold your hand out. So I had to hold my hand out, and then he gave me a smack across the hand with his cane.
Did it hurt?
Oh, it used to hurt a bit. And one day, when we was in the top class, and that in your great-granddad's class, a lot of us thought we'd go across the fields when it was about 1:05 playing fox hunting. Some boys used to be foxes and they'd run off first. Some would be dogs, and some would be the men, and then they'd go and chase to see if they could find the boys. And we all went across these fields, right down through here, out behind the bear pub, and right down to Mr. Kipling's. We was going to keep in that square the foxes were supposed to. And we all went off playing fox hunting. Of course, we was gone rather a long time, so there was not many boys in Mr. South's class. So when we'd had enough, we came back, and we didn't like going in much, but anyway, we did start to go in, and he says, now where have you been? And they said, fox hunting, sir. Next one went in, fox hunting, sir. And there was 27 of us all lined up in front of him in the school. And he went along and he pulled everybody's ear. And he says, now you look. He says, don't go fox hunting anymore. And he pulled their ear like that. He didn't give us the cane for that, but he pulled all their ears.
Did you have a question? What was your teacher's name?
Well, we
told us so.
used to get quite a lot of teachers. The first one was Miss Note. The second one, no, the first one was Miss Blake. The second one was Miss Note. The third one was Mrs. Longley. The fourth one was Mrs. Ambrose. And then we had Miss Grayson. And then we had Mr. South. But from time to time, some of the teachers used to change classes a little bit. So some years you got the same one, perhaps 2 years running. But Mr. South always took the head classes, standard 5 and 6. That was as far as we went in those days.
Right, does anybody else have a question? Stephen.
What work did you do? Copy more things off the blackboard.
Yes, we had to copy a lot of things off the blackboard in those days, especially in the early years and that. But then the latter part of the time, when we was under Mr. South, he used to give us our work to do, and we were supposed to do it. And that, but we used to have quite a lot of mental arithmetic there, when they used to ask you something and you had to give the answer, and they used to dodge about. if you popped your hand that quick, he knew. If anybody was a little bit like that, popped it up and down and didn't know did that, he was sure to ask you what it was. Because most of them didn't know what the answer was. You see? He mu- yes? Well, when we was in the standard, well, the second class at Miss Knowles, we used to have a blackboard then, which was a bit bigger than a slate. The blackboard would be about that colour, about that size, and you used to write on there with chalk, because we didn't use much ink in the first two classes. But all through the school, even the headmaster used to have a blackboard and put different things on there. And he used to put up an ornament, jug or something on a little stand in front of the blackboard, and then we used to have to draw it on the shape of the thing on a piece of brown paper, and then we had to colour it in with pastels. And he used to be very particular. When you'd finished, he'd come round each one and stand behind and see how that jug looked. Because it's easy to draw a jug like that and the hand stuck out, isn't it? But that wasn't right for our master. He'd stand and look at it from where he was. And he'd say, well, it don't look like that. Not from me. He said, it's this way from here. He said, you can't see part of the handle. He said, it's only a little piece round like that, but you've got to put it right. And that side's got a lot of light on it, so you've got to do it different. Make light on there and a little shadow on that one. So everyone along the row, their jug looked at it a bit different, and that's how we used to have to try and draw it. Oh, a heater. Oh, we used to have stoves, grates, and coal, and that. And there used to be a boy that lived up the road, and his mother cleaned the school, and he used to come down in the mornings and help her, and they used to light the fires, and then put the coal on and get them all going. And they used to come down about 8 o'clock in the morning and load them all up to get the school warm for when we came down. Then during the day, the teachers used to have to poke the fires, or else they, and put some on, or else they used to get one of the big boys to come through and do the fires up. Oh yes, we all used to wear hats, caps.
And he still wears a cap, don't he?
Yeah, we still wear one.
Is that the sort of hat you would have worn?
Yes.
The cap?
Yes. I wore it. We used to nearly all wear them. There was not many came without hats, neither boys or girls. And the girls used to have these knitted hats. I think they used to call them tammies or something, and put over their heads. Some was knitted and some was made with cloth. I'm not going to tell you because the teacher wouldn't altogether agree with me. I'll just say I wasn't fussy about it. Yes. Now, we only used to have to do whatever the schoolmaster asked us. And that even with gardening, you couldn't do as you liked. You do what the headmaster wanted. So if you was planting, we'll say beans, for instance, he'd say, well, now we're going to plant the beans today. And we used to have a long line right down across the fields, and then every so often a boy would stand there with a brick. And then when he said, right, then you all dropped your bricks straight down onto the line, so he told it down to the ground, because the field used to go like that a bit. So in the middle, the line went down through there and didn't touch the ground. Then you draw the row out, and when it was all drawn out and you got ready, then you used to come up to the playground up the top, under the trees, and he used to have a old bench out there, and you just hold your hand out, and you each had so many beans, and you had to go down and plant them in the row. And he would walk up and down while you was planting to see you got them all in there the right way up, and filled the row out. So they was each so far apart, you see, all the way up and down the row. But he used to keep her eye on us. We was not allowed to do anything ourselves. One day when we was putting in shallots, one boy, instead of putting his shallots in the right way up, he stuck them all head in the ground. And when the master came along, he says, "Leaves, what have you done with your shallots?" He says, "To me they all look upside down." So he said to him, and he got his cane, because he always used to carry his cane even out there. And every time he bent down to pick a shallot up and change it over, he'd give him a smack on his bottom. Lovely. Door
Oh,
squeak?
because their classroom door squeaks in this room, you
Oh,
see.
no,
The door always squeaked.
Now, if a door squeaked, they was big heavy doors in those days, and if one did start to squeak, someone very soon had to come and put a spot of oil on it to stop it.
What did the classroom look like
Well,
compared to now?
it was plain walls, but a certain amount of it had matchboarding up a bit. I should say a bit, that's all.
Yeah.
Round something like that. And on there, the children used to, who done the best work, used to have it pinned up on the wall for the others to see. So always the best drawings and various things, they was pinned along on there, and then the children could see them.
Did anyone have any questions about the village? Because Mr. Morris knows a lot about the village, doesn't
Good gracious.
Oh, well, Danny's got his finger high, so I think you better start with Danny.
Now what do you want to know?
Did they have that horse race?
Have horses? You, blacksmith? Yes. We had one, and you know where Rampendine is? Almost straight opposite, there's a lane up there, isn't there, where you cross over and go around cars and that go up in there. That's where the blacksmiths used to be, up round in there. And we used to have iron hoops in those days, and we used to have a stick and knock 'em along the road and run with them. And that, and when you broke the hoop and went up round there, he used to mend it for you for a penny. The doctors? Yes, we used to have Dr. Curtis here in those days. And the first I can remember of Dr. Curtis, he used to live down there at the White House, opposite the entrance to where you go in and out of the car park. He lived there. Then he moved from there up to just up the top here, between Rampendine and Edgerton's. And then that's where he lived on till he was old and died. Well, the first fire station we had here was what is a garage at the Bell now round there, and they used to have a cart and a lot of hoses on it, and they used to fix straight onto the main and then turn the water on and they started like that, and then they would go out and shoot over the houses there. Oh no, Shrub Lane was altogether different. I've got a photo here, perhaps some of you would like to hand round. They're very old photos, but I might find you one in a minute. Should be one somewhere. Where is it? Never. Oh, here's one. This is one after. That was Shrub Lane. Now, a lot of you won't know this, but I live straight opposite up here, and this is the top of Shrub Lane when the farm was there, and they used to tar the roads. But Shrub Lane was not a road like it is today. It used to be rough stones all down through there. And there's a photo, there you can hand it round, of the top of Shrub Lane with the tar barrels there, and where those trees are, they were cherry trees. And when they altered the road, they cut the cherry trees down and they made a pavement, and that's where they used to stand then. But there is a little story I might tell you. When they used to have the tar engine, they was a big boiler thing and just boiled the tar, and they used to draw it with a traction engine, and they used to tar the road with that. And then when they had finished, they used to take it down into what's the bare car park now. That's where they'd store it overnight. And I always wanted to be a tarman when I was little. So one day I asked the tarman if I could have a ride. So he said yes. So they was going back to park it for the night, so he let me stand on the back. That was very nice, that was all right. And then when we got up to the church, he said, well, perhaps you'd like to sit on the top and have a ride. So I was ready for that, so he set me up on the top. Oh, very nice. I had a nice ride on the tar tank. But when I got home, oh dear my mother, she took my trousers off because they was all tar, and didn't she smack? Because never again could I wear my trousers. Because they got
ruined. Oh dear.
I think I'd like to hear when you were milking, perhaps when you first left school and started.
Oh yes, I started.
Daniel, sit
I started work when I was 14. I had just a few days to get over Christmas, and then I went. The first job I done was to learn to milk cows. And as soon as I learned to do that properly, and I was about 3 months older, then I started to do a milk round, and I started down what everyone might know as Greenfield Road. And then I used to go down that way and started. I had 2 cans, a pair of yokes, and I used to put the rope yokes on round the shoulders, and the chains came down like that. And then you'd hang a can on each side and steady them with your hands. And I used to go down there. And because I'd done that, instead of getting 10 shillings a week, I was given 11 shillings a week. But of course there was a slight trick to it. I had to start work half an hour earlier in the morning. I had to start at 6 o'clock instead of 5:30. And I used to have to work up to dinner times on Sundays.
What, so you worked every day?
Oh yes, 7 days a week. Yes. I've done it for 27 years and 9 months.
Really?
Milk round here.
Like, cans.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What, so you used to take...
That was one of the little cans that you used to carry on the side of the big ones, and if anybody wanted a quarter cell of milk left for any special reason, you'd leave them there.
So they wouldn't... You didn't have milk bottles then?
Oh no, not till I finished.
No.
No,
Gosh, you must have got to know everyone and everything on that
Of course
milk
I
round. Yeah.
yeah.
So when did they first have bottles in... milk bottles? Milk in bottles?
Round here would have been, I don't know. I didn't have them. They weren't all in the village here when I finished.
Was it after the war?
Hmm. Oh yes, yeah,
After the
people
war?
yeah, in 50s, all right. Now there's a photo. That's of the milk pram and one of the cans
Oh,
down there, and my brother's come to talk. That was down the bottom of the village, and those cans